Welcome to my first muscle performance class. This one's about fat loss. So in this class, I'm going to teach you the 5 things you need to know in order to get lean and be really consistent with your diet, because it's not only important to know what to do in order to lose fat, but it's important to know why you're doing it. And that way you can be really consistent and know what you're doing. So during this presentation, I'm not going to talk about the average things you've probably already heard before, like you've got to be in a calorie deficit. I'm assuming everyone watching this already knows you've got to be eating less calories than you're burning to lose fat. These 5 things are going to be things you've probably never heard before, but they're going to be really important in order for you to lose body fat. So let's get to it. So the first thing I want to speak to you about today is the fact that there's a maximum fat loss per day for each individual. So let's take an example of an 80 kg male who's 20% body fat. He can only lose 110 grams of body fat a day. Doesn't matter how extreme he goes. He could run a marathon and be in a 5,000 calorie deficit. He can still only lose 110 grams of fat. So if you're on 3,000 calories, let's say, and you go into a deep 1,000 calorie deficit and you lose a kilogram of weight, so 890 grams of that kilo were not actually body fat, it's water and just general food in your stomach. So you're just making the diet extreme for no reason. You are not speeding fat loss up when you go in an extreme diet. If anything, you're just making it too hard to stick to and you're going to break the diet. So I'll try and explain that in the next slide. So let's say I give you a 500 ml glass and I say fill this with as much water as possible. So you turn the tap on and you fill it until it's overflowing. It doesn't matter how much you overflow this 500 ml glass, it can only hold 500 mils of water. That's what a diet is like. It doesn't matter how extreme the diet is, you can only lose a certain amount of body fat a day. So an extreme diet is not what you want to do. You don't want to go in super extreme like 6-week diets. So what you want to do is lose the maximum amount of fat you can lose in a day, but then just consistently do that over and over and over and over again, instead of trying to plummet your calories as low down as possible. So let's say there's 2 people who start on 3,000 calories. One goes into a 1,000 calorie deficit because he's like, I want to lose fat fast. And he can only keep this diet up for 10 days because it's so extreme. He only loses 1.1 kilos of fat, even though he's gone in an extreme diet. But the other person who's on 3,000 calories, if they go into a 500 calorie deficit, so half the amount, they can keep that up for 20 days because it's so much easier, and they lose 2.2 kilos. So it's double the amount of fat loss, even though they were in less of a deficit, because it was a longer deficit. It's the length that you can be in a deficit for that is the best, and I'm going to teach you how to be in a super long deficit now. So the second thing I want to speak to you about is diet, cycling and refeeds. So actually before you start the cut part of your diet, you want to actually up your calories. And I know that's a bit hard to wrap your head around, and people come to me and say, Dan, I want to lose body fat. And I'm like, yeah, well, up your calories to start. But I'm going to explain why you want to do that now. So before the proper diet starts, you want to gradually up your calories as much as you can, but without your body weight going up. So if I can get my calories from 2,500 to 2,800, and then my weight only just about starts going up now, this is where the diet starts. You want to get your calories up high first, so you have a lot of calories to play with. So most men are going to struggle to go down below 1,800 calories. This is basically the end point of most men's diet. This is when you're really going to start feeling rubbish. So I wouldn't suggest going lower than 1,800 for most men. So if you're starting on 2,500, let's say you didn't do this little mini bulk before you start your diet, you've only got 700 calories for your whole diet, and that's not a lot of calories to play with. Whereas if you got it up to 2,800, you have 1,000 calories extra, which doesn't sound like much, but when you think about it, it's like nearly 50% extra. So you can diet for 50% longer, and that's what really matters in a diet, how long you can diet for. So in the next slide, I'm going to talk about how to actually structure your diet and how much of a deficit you want to be in. So if you start your diet on 2,800 calories and go into a 200 calorie deficit, you can keep this up for around 2 weeks until your body weight starts to plateau, and you want your body weight to plateau for 5 days straight before you drop your calories again, because only when it's plateaued for 5 days do you actually know yet have hit a new maintenance, and then you've got to progressively overload the diet to keep losing body fat. So just like in a gym, you progressively overload lifts, you've got to progressively overload the diet to keep losing body fat. So let's use this perfect model that you're going to plateau every 2 weeks, which isn't actually true, but let's just use it for the sake of ease. A person on 2,800 calories can actually diet for 10 weeks. And someone who didn't do that first little pre-bulk, who's on 2,500 calories, they can only diet for 8.5 weeks. And as I said, it's the length of the diet that matters. So because this person can diet for longer, they're going to burn a lot more body fat than someone who can only diet for 8.5 weeks. As I said, you're not going to perfectly plateau every 2 weeks, but you want to start your diet on 2,800, let's say, and then you go in a 200 calorie deficit and you stay here until your body weight stalls for 5 days straight. And then you take another 200 calories off and you go again until you stall for 5 days. So this first 5 days might only take you 10 days until you plateau for 5 days, and then when you do this one, it might take you 20 days. It literally doesn't matter, but you want to keep going until you plateau for 5 days, and then you do the next step. And for most men, I would say you only want to go down to 1,800 calories, and most women, you want to go down to 1,300 max, because at this point, you're starting to really mess with your hormones and your body's actual functions. And I know some people are going to think, oh, well, Dan, I go down to 1,800 and still not lean enough, or I go down to 1,300 and still don't feel lean. So I'm going to show you what to do in the next slide. So let's say you get down to 1,800 calories and you finish your first part of the diet, but you're still not lean enough. This is a really common situation for most people, and where so many people get frustrated because they're like, I'm eating next to nothing and I'm still not getting leaner. But you can't go further than this. You're really starting to damage your body. That's why you feel so horrendous. So what I want you to do is go from 1,800 calories, you're going to bang your calories back up, but to 200 calories less than what you started. So you're going to go to 2,600 instead of 2,800. And you're going to keep eating 2,600 calories every day until your body weight stalls for 3 days. So this might take 14 days. This might take 2 weeks until your body weight stalls for 3 days. But that's completely fine. And don't be thinking, oh, because I'm eating more, I'm going to put all that weight back on. That is not the case. Exactly the same way that I said there's a maximum fat loss per day, there's a maximum fat gain per day. So the shorter the bulking period, the less fat that you're going to actually put on. So you're only really losing 14 days of your diet, and then you can go back to the diet. That's the main thing. You're doing this in order to start the whole cycle over again. So you're going to go from your 2,600 and start going down minus 200 all the time until you get to 1,800 again. And then you can start this cycle again. You can go up to 2,400 until your body weight stalls for 3 days, and then you do it again, the minus 200 calories all the time until you get down to 1,800 calories. And doing this cycle over and over again is how you stay lean. This is how people are in a calorie deficit for basically a year straight, with very few days in between where they're getting the calories back up. And the reason it's so important to get your calories back up is when you're down here, you're not burning many calories. That's why you're still not losing body fat at 1,800 calories. You need to get your body and your calories back up to a good position where your metabolism's burning, you've got energy to train and all those things, and it's really good for your body's health. And then you can start the diets again. You can't just constantly beat your body to death and expect to keep losing body fat. So this is why this cycling is so important, and why diet cycling is so important. And now we're going to talk about refeeds. I haven't forgot about them. So each week of this diet, I want you to have one refeed meal. And what I mean by that is, don't go on a cheat day and go berserk and have 10 tubs of ice cream. I'm saying one refeed meal. So let's say your normal dinner is 600 calories. All you're going to do is have 50% extra, so have 900 calories instead. So this is as simple as, let's say you're having a beef stir fry of like 200 grams of noodles and 200 grams of beef. All you have to do is have 50% extra, so add 100 grams to each. So now you're going to have 300 grams of noodles and 300 grams of beef. It's as simple as that. That way you're not eating junk food that's going to set your diet off and have you craving sugar and stuff. You're just eating what you're already eating, but have a bigger portion of it. And this way you're getting a boost of calories each week, and you're boosting your metabolism a little bit. And don't worry if your weight goes up a little bit after this meal. It's going to go straight back to normal anyway. But this is going to massively help on a diet, because if you're just staying in a consistent diet all the time, it's really going to be hard on your body. You're going to have no energy in that. So one refeed a week is enough. So the third thing I want to speak to you about is the thermic effect of food. So not all food is the same. Basically, when you have 100 grams of protein, you get 400 calories from that 100 grams, but you actually burn 120 calories just digesting that. So for each macro that there is protein, carbs and fats, you actually burn a different amount of calories to process that amount of food. That's why you always hear PTs banging on about get your protein up when you're dieting, because the more protein you have, you're just burning more calories day to day. You're not even actually doing anything other than eating food to burn those calories. So I'm going to explain in the next slide how it can affect your diet massively. So let's say you're on 2,500 calories and you've broken up your macros into 20% protein, 40% fats, 40% carbs. You're burning 240 calories just eating that food each day. But if you got your protein higher, if you doubled it to 40% protein, 30% fat, 30% carbs, you're actually burning 336 calories just eating your food today. So you're actually burning 49 calories extra a day eating the exact same amount of calories. So you can see over a long period of time, that's gonna make a massive difference. So the way I want you to break your macros down, no matter what calories you're on, try and get your protein up to around 40%, maybe 35, but you want to keep it pretty high. I'd ideally want you to be getting 40. Then your carbs and fats, you can just balance out how you like, but you don't want either one to go below 20%, because that's when you're starting to really mess your body up. If you go below 20% fats, you're going to have hormonal issues, because fats are really important for your hormones. And if you go below 20% carbs, you're just going to have super low energy. You're going to struggle to train hard enough to actually keep and build muscle. So you can do a 30-30 split. That's what I'd ideally say for you to do with the carbs and fats, because your protein's 40, or you can go up to 40 in one and 20 in the other, but just don't go below that 20% on either, because you're really starting to mess your hormones up. So now we're going to talk about the training and cardio side of fat loss. So if you're an 80 kilo man and you've got around 32 kilograms of muscle on you and you're quite sedentary, you don't really have an active job or you're not active, you're only burning around 2,400 calories a day. So that's your start point to the diet. And as I said before, you want to get your calories as high as possible in order to be in a deficit for as long as possible. So now let's say you're the same 80 kilo man, but you've put on 8 kilos of muscle over time and you're very active. This person can actually eat 3,280 calories. And as we can see here, that means they've got 1,480 calories to play with in a diet. And as we said, it's how long you can be in the diet for. So just think how long this person can be in a diet compared to someone who's only got 600 calories to play with. So I'm going to teach you how to actually structure your training and cardio in the next video. So now you know why having muscle and being active is important, why training and cardio is important for fat loss. I'm going to show you how to actually implement it now. So you want the majority of your sessions to be weightlifting sessions, because muscle is a calorie dense tissue. That means the more muscle you have on your body, the more calories you burn just being alive day to day. So the ideal is to either build muscle or maintain as much muscle as possible while in a deficit. So let's say this is your week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Then you want to do weights on a Monday, weights on a Wednesday, weights on a Friday. Let's say you do 3 weight sessions. You can do 2 cardio sessions, but don't do more than that. You want the majority of your sessions to be weights. And in the cardio sessions, try and keep it list style cardio, which means low intensity, steady state cardio. That means just walking on an incline, or if you go on the pedal bikes, that's completely fine. But you're not doing high intensity, crazy workouts. You're just trying to get a little bit of a calorie burn. So what you want to do is do the weights first. So you want to do like 45 minutes to an hour weights at least. And then you can add like 10-15 minutes of cardio at the end, just walking. Or ideally separate them, do like a morning walk and then weights in the evening, or the other way around. But don't do your cardio before your weights. You want as much energy as possible for the weights and then a nice easy stroll after it. So the fifth and final principle of the fat loss that I want to speak about is avoiding snacks. Snacks ruin almost every single diet that's ever been started because people don't eat big enough meals. What they do is they say, right, I'm in a 2,800 calorie diet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have 300 calories for breakfast, have as small a lunch as possible, have 500 calories for lunch, and then they're absolutely starving after they've had a little dinner, and they just go and binge and have 1,000 calories on snacks. They just go and raid the cupboards and go berserk because they've gone so strict in the morning and they haven't given themselves enough calories to actually get through the day. So what I want you to do is just very easy maths, is take your 2,800, whatever calories it is that you're on, just divide it by 4. So this would be 700 calories, and just have 4 700 calorie meals a day and just break it up evenly. That way you're gonna have an even amount of energy all day. You're not really restricting yourself at any point in the day. So you don't want to go super low calories at the beginning of the day, and you don't want to go super high calorie and leave yourself no calorie for later on in the day. You just want to balance it out with 4 meals is the ideal. I'd rather you eat bigger meals and don't snack at all than you try and eat small meals and you think, oh well, I'll just snack on little bits later, because it's the snacks that go really high. You're never going to snack on protein. You're going to snack on like carbs and fats and biscuits and cakes, and that will explode your calories and ruin your diet. So now we've covered the 5 principles, I'm going to teach you how to actually put this into a diet plan. So what you're going to do when you first start your diet, you're actually going to up your calories, which I know it sounds backwards, but I explained before, you want to get your calories as high as possible. So keep upping your calories until your body weight changes. If your body weight hasn't changed, keep upping the calories. So let's say you get your calories up to 2,800 before your body weight goes up a little bit. Then this is actually where your diet starts. So now take this 2,800 and I want you to divide it by 4, which is 700 calories. And then I want you to have 40% protein, 30% fats, 30% carbs. If you don't know how to work that into meals, literally just type into AI, give me a 700 calorie meal hitting these macros, and it'll give you ideas. It's as simple as that. Then I want you to go to the gym and lift weights. I want you to lift 3 to 5 times per week, and you can add in some light cardio, only 15 to 30 minutes cardio, 2 or 3 times a week, nothing crazy, just a light walk or on the bike. Every week of this diet, I want you to have 1 refeed. So you're gonna have, let's say you're on the 700 calorie meals, you're gonna have 1,500 calories for 1 meal a week, just an extra 50%. And you're gonna keep doing this until your body weight stalls for 5 days, and then you're gonna drop down 200 calories. So go from 2,800 to 2,600. And then you're gonna do the exact same process again, just divide it by 4 and type it into AI again if you want. So like I said before, you're going to go from the 2,800 and keep dropping down, doing the cycle where you drop down 200 calories until you're on 1,800, then you go back up to 2,600 until your body weight stalls for 3 days, and then you go down 200s again until you hit 1,800, and you keep doing this cycle. As I said before, that is the main thing I want you to realize. You don't have to keep plummeting down and down and down. You have to cycle back up, because it's the longest diet that is the best. The longer you can be in a deficit, the better. It's not how extreme the deficit is. So I just want to finish off this video by saying you are not perfect. You are not going to do all of this diet perfect. You're going to have little slip-ups and hiccups along the way. You will break this diet. So at some point you might have a craving for ice cream and you just raid the freezer and have some ice cream. I just don't want you to go berserk and panic about that. It's just a little bit of ice cream. Just get back on track as soon as possible. The worst thing you can do when you have some ice cream is go, oh well, you know what, I've just had ice cream, I've broken the diet, I may as well have some cookies, and then I may as well have a beer as well, and then the calories are just going absolutely berserk. What I want you to do is try and shorten the span of you getting back on track as soon as possible. So if you have some ice cream, I want you to try and get back on the diet immediately. So within the hour, start eating your normal food and that again. Instead of, oh, I've had a takeaway, so I'm just going to swerve this weekend and blow it off and then get back to my diet on Monday. That is the worst mentality you could ever have. It's simply just a little bit of ice cream. Just get back to your diet as soon as possible, and you're going to get back to losing fat as soon as possible. So don't let these minor little hiccups turn into a big mountain. So this is how I suggest you go about losing body fat. And you can see how this concept will actually really help you to stay in a calorie deficit for a super long time and get really lean. So because this is my first class, I'd love it if you're stuck on anything or you've got questions, please write them in the comments, because I'd be happy to help, and hopefully over time I can explain it more and more for you.